batteries are not being manufactured here, but there is an end of life of those batteries, and the disposal is a very, very big issue.
It has to come from renewable sources.
Yeah.
To create that extra capacity through renewable source itself is a challenge.
There is no specific push for, let's say, differently abled.
Some kind of myths associated, like people have heard some stories in social media, like battery will blast. Okay, this is not safe.
China has electrified its public transport, its freight transport, and they did it very early on as compared to the rest of the world. So by the time the world caught up, they already had, captured the whole supply chain.
So it becomes very crucial to bring masses in this movement, right? Hello, and welcome to the Perspective by VisionIAS, where we bring important happenings of world and India. Today we will talk about electric mobility, a transformation that is not only a climate change solution but also a development and growth prospect. India is also catching up on this. In last 1 year alone, we had more than 2 million electric vehicles. So what more can be done? What are the challenges? What are the prospects? We will discuss all this with esteemed panelists Rajesh sir, Jasmine ma'am. Welcome you all. So Rajesh sir, as I said, this electric mobility transformation, it is not just an environmental solution, but also a developmental prospect. So why this is strategically imperative for India?
See, the electric mobility, we just don't see in terms of the environmental angle. So there is definitely the developmental angle to it. So according to me, there are three priorities we can achieve through electric mobility. So first one is, of course, related to the climate change. So as a part of signatory to Paris Agreement, India has committed that where we will achieve net zero by 2070. And of course, there's also other commitments under the NDCs. So to fulfill this, definitely we have to make our the transportation sector electric. So that is one of the main way through which we can cut down the amount of emissions, which accounts for nearly 11 to 12% of the entire emissions right now. So other than that, so in terms of the infrastructure development and also the manufacturing and the batteries and the vehicles, so there's a huge potential for the boosting the economy. Right, so it can create a large number of employment, and also so in terms of industrial capacity to manufacture domestically. So that is going to give a huge boost. The third important aspect is our energy security. So it is expected that by 2030, a minimum of 90% of India's oil requirement will be met through imports only. So in that case, so definitely electric mobility is going to reduce the dependency on these oil imports.
I want to add the health component also here. So public health also greatly is going to be benefited from this move, because India has one of the world's most polluted cities, and we need solutions like this. We have problems of particulate matter, and shifting to electrical vehicles is really going to control that, because the vehicular traffic is one of the big major sources of your air pollution. Along with that, the second component, which a lot of times is not discussed also, that's going to be noise pollution. In cities specifically, this is a very, very big problem. You have the children and the elderly who are particularly vulnerable to this. So shifting to electrical vehicles will also reduce the noise level to which we are being exposed, thus overall creating a lot of benefit for public health.
So definitely they are like environmental benefit, but what we see right now, especially what's happening in China or Europe or USA, the driving force is economic now, right? Jasmine ma'am, so where do we stand right now?
Like you had started with this discussion that we have got 2 million new units of electric vehicles, which is a very, very big indication that yes, we are making a lot of progress. There's a lot of boost which has come on this, and that is definitely coming from the government idea or the government initiative which has come up. The government is bringing in a number of schemes in which in their own way they are trying to incentivize both manufacturing and adoption of this. Like you have the FAME schemes, which is faster adoption and manufacturing. So it highlights both these aspects. So if you focus on the manufacturing aspect, that's the boost to your economy, and adoption has all those other benefits which you've talked about. But if we have to evaluate India's position right now, in terms of use, the use is mostly in private vehicles. And in that also, it is the two-wheelers and the three-wheelers, like your e-rickshaws, which you have. They have gone for faster adoption. In two-wheelers, it's these delivery-based apps which are there. Their vehicles, your quick commerce is really boosting a lot of these vehicles being included in the setup. Cars are growing, you can say, at a relatively slower pace. And a major part of that is because if you buy a car, you wish to travel not just within your quick commerce radius, but you probably want to take it out. And for that, you need a reliable energy source. So that is where currently we haven't been able to create that supporting infrastructure, the charging stations as such. That idea is still, you can say, a little limited. For us to be able to grow electrical vehicles, first we need that basic infrastructure, that at regular intervals we should have charging points, charging stations which are available, accessible to everybody. That is what will ultimately lead to the boost of the whole idea.
Yeah, so I would like to add on to that. So there's this new term called as range fear.
Yeah, range.
So whether your electric vehicle will have that sufficient range required for your transport or not. So in that context, definitely having a good charging infrastructure is the most basic essential thing. So for example, even if you take any of these well-established electric vehicles, for example, Tesla, okay, so they provide a very good charging network. Okay, so and at a very cheap rate. Fine. So this kind of charging infrastructure is what is required in India also in order to have a greater acceptance. But in addition to that, the thing is like the range. Okay, how far we are able to push this individual range of each vehicle. So that again depends upon the battery technology, battery manufacturing, and we are highly dependent upon imports right now. Okay, so we are not at all self-sufficient, first of all, and nearly 90% of the components are imported from China and other countries, and so that limits our so capacity in terms of charging battery as well as so charging infrastructure. And in addition to this, there's also the critical minerals which are required for the battery. Okay, so whether it is lithium or cobalt. So there is a great dependency on imports. We have discovered few good reserves of lithium, but it will take a long time for it to be so explored and extracted. So and also in terms of domestic manufacturing capacity, so the government is trying to boost it. Okay, there is a PLI scheme to boost the domestic manufacturing, but still, in spite of that, the overall capability has been very low. So these are some of the so the bottlenecks we can say.
Yeah, and this range and charging infrastructure is a big bottleneck, not just in India. Like I saw a video where a person was charging vehicle via generator that was running on petrol. so that is like how it is an irony. And that becomes a crucial difficulty for pushing it in the segment of four-wheelers, right? So how does government now fulfill this gap? This is a gap, whether you say it's infrastructure gap or the enabling regulation or policy gap. So do you first of all see this gap, and if yes, then how they fill this gap?
So of course there are a lot of gaps in this so the policy and at the regulatory level. So for example, the sector of electric mobility doesn't come under one single ministry. Okay, so there is a Ministry of Renewable Energy, there is a Ministry of Transportation and Highway, there is a Ministry of Urban Affairs. Okay, so on all of these deal with so at multiple different levels about the electric mobility. So not having a single ministry is something which is so very so crucial, which should have been there to so have a unified policy at the national level. So in addition, so there's also unified metropolitan transport authorities which are established in the metropolitan cities, but they don't have enough powers to enforce, so there's a uniformity of policy in terms of EV across the metropolitan areas, because you need to integrate the EVs not only at the personal level, even at the urban mass transportation level, right? So, and the third important part in terms of charging infrastructure, if you have to talk about, particularly for reaching out to the common man. So, the urban local body should be empowered to have that kind of infrastructure, and we see that in most of the cities, the urban so local bodies don't have that kind of power as well as finance.
So, in this couple, you actually made a very good point, which also we see as a kind of a counter situation or a very big gap, that we are talking about popularizing of electrical vehicles as a cleaner, way of transport. It's using cleaner fuel, but the challenge is, where is that electricity coming from? That is, like you said, it's coming from maybe a coal-based thermal plant. So it's not ultimately clean, right? Maybe there's no tailpipe emission, no fumes are coming out of that car, but the energy which is going into the vehicle, that is being produced in a conventional method, right? So if you really want the whole thing to be clean, that integration has to be end to end, right? That also needs to be updated or upgraded for that greater goal. If you're talking about long-term targets or net zero emissions by 2070, so that has to do the whole integration. Other than that, there is this big issue which we have with the battery components. Sir has already stressed that we're getting a lot of it from outside. Batteries are not being manufactured here, but there is an end of life of those batteries, and the disposal is a very, very big issue. So again, in a way, this system is not connected. It does not really have a circular loop to it. So you need to have cleaner ways to recycle it only. Also, because only then that endpoint can be done sustainably. Only then that use can be done sustainably. Along with that, we definitely need more expertise and awareness also in this. So the government policies, they are trying to stress on adoption, but awareness levels on this, especially because of limitation of cost also, is still very, very limited and very, very low. That is why we have not had a very intense percolation in rural areas, where even if there are people who have resources, they don't have understanding of these kind of systems.
So, ma'am, like you have pointed out a very important thing, like it is, if we myopically see, then you can say it is environmental, but you have to see it holistically. And there, maybe it is at this point not that environmental friendly, which the whole perception is being made about, right? So, like, could you add more to this, like this environmental friendliness of the current status that we have?
So, environmental friendliness, one of aspect, of course, we have to talk about the energy source which is being used. Then in terms of manufacture also, like Sir spoke about lithium. Now, lithium is an integral to being used. Even if we are getting it from outside, still the challenge is that mining of lithium or silicon or cobalt which is used, that is very environmentally degrading. Okay, not just in terms of carbon emission, but in terms of your soil and water pollution and overall damage of the ecosystem. So that is again something which you cannot really term as clean, right? And of course, like, as I mentioned earlier also, the deposit, the dumping of batteries, that is very, very toxic. So if you're not recycling it, it's going into a place where it is causing immense degradation. Some of those toxins which will come out are going to be life-threatening for human beings, for let's say if there are marine sources involved, for them, and overall for the environment.
And like if we say about lithium and cobalt, sir, like it is, the demand will be so high that the mining has to start in virgin areas. Right, so that will have a greater impact. It's not like there are well-established mines for these things and we are just extracting more. We need to go for more explorations. And
so we have recently discovered a very good amount of lithium in Kashmir as well as in Karnataka. So all of these are going to be fresh mines. Of course, this mining would definitely result in deforestation, land degradation, and so even the conversion of maybe agriculture land also. So there's all of this issue. So other than this, there's also social angle to it. The countries from which the lithium cobalt is coming out, they are not very well developed. Okay, for example, DRC. Okay, so and they are using so all inhuman methods of extraction, using child labor and using this the money from the mining for so for their the rebellions, so all the civil conflict and all of this is not so we cannot say it as a just transformation. Okay, it's not just so justified to have this kind of so demand for this infrastructure. So in addition to this, the most important point is actually the source of electricity. Okay, so unless we are going to have so a major part of electricity coming from renewables, this is not so technically green energy, so green mobility. So we are just not emitting at this vehicular level, rather we are emitting at some other level. Okay, so through thermal power plant or something else.
So one more thing is there, like if you talk about electricity, currently there is no integration with the main grid for the purpose of electric vehicles. Like are the grids actually prepared to have that large fleet of vehicles which are also going to extract energy from them? Is there going to be a different source, a different point of generation of energy which is going to be created in it? There is no, that backend link is not there currently. Currently, whatever electricity is coming to, let's say, a city, that's only being utilized in it. So if we have to think about like exponential growth, we are not able to meet our existing energy needs, right? We are in a crisis, like it's summer, so there's going to be a crisis. So what happens to those vehicles? They have to run.
Yes, that extra additional requirement of energy, one is we have to fulfill that capacity. Second thing, it has to come from renewable sources.
Yeah.
That to create that extra capacity through renewable source itself is a challenge.
Yeah.
And so,
then it increases the cost also.
Yes, definitely. The cost of whether it is solar energy or wind energy, so it's not cheaper than compared to thermal. Right.
So like if we say that vehicle is just a small part of this whole debate, there are a lot of supply chain issues and energy chain issues that have to be looked around, right?
And even in addition to that, we are talking about so urban mobility through electric vehicles. So, but if at all we are just replacing a normal internal combustion vehicle with an electric vehicle, the congestion is going to remain the same. So we are not reducing the number of vehicles. So this will not reduce congestion and traffic in urban areas. So our focus has to be more on mass transportation. Okay, so there comes the major challenge. So to convert the mass transportation to electric mobility, and also the free transportation, good transportation, to convert that into electric mobility is a very big challenge.
Rightly pointed out, sir. As ma'am, you mentioned about the air pollution issue. So 40 to 60% emissions are coming from these large mass vehicles, right? And if we don't change them to electrical, then the benefits are very limited in that regard. Now, talking on this issue of benefit only, sir. So who is reaping then this benefit? Is it inclusive in nature? Is it helping, or it is the growth or the economic dividend what we are talking about? Is it inclusive?
Not completely. If at all we have to talk about the divide between the urban and rural area, so large share of these benefits are taken mainly by urban areas. So rural areas, so first of all, there's not much of awareness among them about the necessity of electric mobility, and also there's a lot of so confusion and and also some kind of myths associated. Like people have heard some stories in social media, like battery will blast. Okay, this is not safe. Okay, that kind of fear is there in rural area. So the greater part of acceptance is in urban areas, and even within that urban area, so maximum share goes for 2-wheelers and 3-wheelers. So there is very less share in 4-wheelers. Okay, so which is actually required. And so even in 2-wheeler and 3-wheelers, most of them, as ma'am was saying, it's mainly integrating with the online platforms who are so the delivery boys and other people who are trying to use this for their livelihood, because it works out cheaper for them. Okay, so the main challenge here is to bring it to the mass transportation. Fine. So at that level, there is a great inequality between urban and rural. There is a great inequality, and within urban area also there is a great inequality in terms of the vehicles and the people who are proportionately using it.
In this, actually, the price factor also becomes a very significant point. Even when government is talking about giving subsidies and incentives, still it is not very affordable.
Yes.
Still, the vehicle is not something which is easily accessible, especially if we want to connect those people who currently don't have a vehicle or the means to do that. So it's not that the electric vehicle will be lesser in terms of fuel cost. That's definitely there, but the vehicle itself, that's not cheap, even with the subsidies. So that limits the access. Along with that, there is no specific push for, let's say, differently abled. We don't have vehicles designed specifically for them that maybe they could be included better, or women for that matter. Like there was this discussion on two-wheelers and the charging points which we have, like in a city like Delhi. They are very, very inaccessible in terms of like a disabled person cannot go up to that ramp. Or for women also, it will usually be in some shady corner of the road, right, which will not be well lit, so you can't go and charge your vehicle at night. So these things also have to be incorporated if you want the benefits to percolate further.
So what we can say is, like, right now the push is more from the supply side. We need to create that inclusive divide side also for this. So, ma'am, if we talk about the global scenario of this, and we are seeing that China is just rushing away. Now they have left behind the West also when it comes to. I was seeing a blog of some person on Instagram, and that person was going through Kazakhstan. So the Central Asia only have EVs from China. So not only within China, they are also now going beyond their boundaries right now. So in that global aspect, where other countries are and where India stands.
I'll build on this example of China only, and what Sir had earlier mentioned, which is, I think, the most critical point which we need for transformation, that is public transport. This is what China did. China has electrified its public transport, its freight transport, and they did it very early on as compared to the rest of the world. So by the time the world caught up, they already had, captured the whole supply chain. When you do it on a public transport, you have to do it on a bigger scale. So that gives you the capabilities to, do all those things, to have everything from raw material to technological expertise. So that investment in public transport has been their advantage. Along with this, one more example I want to give from Norway. So Norway has given a lot of incentives, like you mentioned, that we have to give incentives to the demand side. Now, what they have done is they have given, of course, along with subsidies, they've told that, okay, the tax will be less. You will not have to give tolls if you're on an electric vehicle, and like they have dedicated bus routes. The bus has a different zone where you get like easy clearance, and you can, drive through it even in the traffic which is there in the rest of the road. So electric vehicles are allowed to go on that road. Okay, so if I have to go to work and I know that if I buy this vehicle, I'll probably reach, 20 minutes earlier. That's my big incentive, especially in urban areas where, like Sir had discussed earlier also, congestion is a very, very big problem. So I think these are things which we also need to, smartly adapt if we want this to be working in India.
If toll is like, if we start giving toll free for electrical vehicle, I think it will caught up in rural area also.
Yeah.
A major issue, they don't want to pay any tolls.
Yeah. So in fact, yeah, even in India also, there are few states which are doing really well. Okay, for example, Delhi had a very good incentives for electric mobility, and Maharashtra and Telangana, they are doing really good in terms of manufacturing setup for electric mobility. And recently, even I heard that in UP they are giving so incentive for electric mobility of certain vehicles, hybrid as well as electric vehicles. The overall registration cost has been waived off or somewhat like that. So definitely these kind of incentives are going to go well in India. Okay, so but what we need at the national level is like some kind of convergence of so national plan, or so coming under a single ministry with a broad so plan to achieve this so with a so in a targeted manner. So that is what is required in India. Okay, so and the most important component is the public acceptance. Okay, so here I would like to bring another example in France. So any kind of decision, policy-making decisions for this public mode of transportation or EV, it involves so consensus of the citizens over there. So before they make at that level itself, they're taking so into consensus of the people. So that kind of acceptance definitely is required here. So in order to ensure a greater penetration of electric mobility in India.
So it becomes very crucial to bring masses in this movement, right? So now, looking ahead, the solutions that can be there from this to we really take it off point, what solutions are required at policy level and as well as also implementation level, sir?
So in my opinion, it's required in both. It's required in both. At the policy level, we have to ensure that whatever we are trying to, so bring the electric mobility in India has to be uniform policy at the national level. Okay, so with clearly set targets and so objectives, and so maybe giving more powers and giving statutory provisions to this unified metropolitan transport authority is going to do well. Okay, so and empowering the local bodies with some so finances, especially for developing this infrastructure. And in addition to this, we can also go with some innovative financial schemes. Okay, so like green bonds or some other so from the government subsidy side. Okay, so yeah, that is one. And other than that, in terms of implementation, yes. So it has to be on the ground implementation in terms of so the building more awareness, as well as so creating the infrastructure in a better manner that it reaches the larger audience, inclusive of all the sections of the society, right? So these kind of so measures are definitely required.
And of course, technological upgradation is also needed. Like, you can't just adopt this on an existing system. You need to really innovate in terms of design also. We need to have this manufacturing of everything from the vehicle to the battery, which should be done indigenously. Keeping this in mind that this has to be designed for Indian roads. The battery system, the charging points, that's one very strange kind of a situation, that we have different kinds of charging stations which are there. Like for an e-rickshaw or a smaller car, you have a different set of system. It's called the Bharat charging system. And then there is a different system for the larger vehicles. So when you have less infrastructure, you cannot really differentiate. You need to have like a unified system of charging. Technologically also, everything should be in sync so that there can be, universal acceptability to all of these things. That does needs a lot of work at the end of the technology also.
Yes. Most importantly, the energy. We have to work on, so increasing the renewable energy capacity in India, so that this actually becomes, so electric, and this actually turns into a green mobility. Yes, not just electric mobility.
So we can say like there is an intent in the government, whether we talk about phase 1 and now phase 2, and also there is this inertia for doing something about it. Now we need to look it more holistically, so that first of all it is truly green, and then it is truly inclusive, and also ensures that acceptance is there among the public. Thank you so much, panelists, for such a detailed discussion. So aspirants, I hope now you have a very good idea about electrical mobility. What are your solutions for ensuring a faster adoption of electrical vehicle? Do let us know in the comment section. And if you want to know more such important happening of India and the world, stay connected with the perspective of VisionIAS. Thank you.